I watched my own father getting arrested for a tiny sprinkler part that cost less than $5. Life teaches people lessons in strange ways, and my dad needed one. My father has been the self-appointed ruler of our family. Even after we grew up, got jobs, and moved out, he treated us like children. He always said things like, "I'm your father or uncle, and you will respect my authority." It was tiring, but no one stood up to him. Everything changed on a Saturday when my father, my cousin, and I went to the gardening store. We needed parts to fix the sprinkler system at my dad's house, just connectors, a valve, and other small pieces. We found what we needed quickly, but one item had a scratched price tag that was hard to read. I knew it would cause problems. I told my dad the tag was damaged and we should find another one. He said it was fine. He ripped off the tag and put the item in his pocket. My cousin and I looked at each other in shock. I asked what he was doing and said it was stealing. He said they wouldn't notice, since it was small and had no tag to set off the alarm. My cousin had graduated from the police academy just a month ago. He was new and serious about following the law. My cousin warned my father he could be arrested. My dad laughed and said he wouldn't dare try. My cousin whispered to me, asking if I knew what he planned to do. I said yes and told him to go ahead. My father paid for the other items, ignoring the stolen piece in his pocket. When we passed through the security sensors, making the theft official, my cousin acted. He loudly said he was an off-duty police officer, gave his badge number, and said he saw my father hide merchandise and leave without paying. My dad looked shocked and confused, realizing his nephew was serious. A security guard came over and asked what was happening. My cousin said again he was an off-duty officer and explained what he saw. The guard told my father to empty his pockets. My father looked at me for help, but I stayed quiet. He emptied his pockets, revealing the stolen part. The guard told my father to come to the office because they had to report it. My dad complained it was just a small part and told us to explain who he was, but we said nothing. The guard took my father to the back office while we waited. About 20 minutes later, two officers arrived. My cousin explained what happened, and the store manager showed them the security footage of my dad taking the tag off and putting the item in his pocket. An officer told my dad he was being arrested for shoplifting. As they put handcuffs on him, he asked if we were really letting them take him in over a $5 part. I told him he was the one who stole it and dared my cousin to arrest him, so it was his fault. They took my father away in the police car. My cousin and I stood in the parking lot for a while. I asked if we went too far. He said my father needed to learn he wasn't above the law or anyone else in the family. My father spent the night in jail. The store pressed charges and he got a big fine, more than if he'd just bought the part. When we picked him up the next day, he was quiet. Family gatherings were awkward after that, with my dad being unusually reserved. But slowly things changed. He started treating us with respect, asking for opinions instead of giving orders. He even apologized to my cousin. We now call it the sprinkler incident, and we can laugh about it. My dad sometimes jokes about it too, though he's still embarrassed. A night in jail knocked him off his pedestal. It was exactly what he needed to see us as adults. This wasn't the first time my father had taken something without paying. He had a habit of pocketing small items from restaurants, hardware stores, and even family members' homes. My mother had covered for him for years, replacing items he took or making excuses. She called me that night, crying about how I let my cousin arrest him. I told her enabling his behavior had to stop. She hung up on me. 3 days later, she called back to apologize. My father had confessed to her about all the things he'd taken over the years. He started seeing a therapist to understand why he stole, despite having money. 6 months later, at Thanksgiving dinner, my father stood up and thanked my cousin and me. He said the arrest forced him to face his issues with control and entitlement. The therapy revealed his behavior stemmed from childhood poverty and fear. He went back to the gardening store with the manager's permission and worked 20 hours of community service in their garden center. My cousin got teased at the police station for arresting his own uncle, but his supervisor commended his integrity. Last week, my father helped my cousin move into his new house, carrying boxes and offering genuine advice without commands. 6 months ago, I got my first job in human resources at a nursing home. I was excited to start my career, even without experience in the field. During the interview, my future boss promised to guide me since she had over 20 years of experience. On my first day, I realized I wasn't just doing HR. I handled human resources, public relations, communications, phones, emails, visitors, supplies, administration, and everything related to company policies. I was doing the work of 5 full-time employees. At first, my boss seemed understanding. We talked about the workload, which she said was difficult for both of us. She told me I was doing well and that she'd help me learn. I thanked her and told her I was determined to learn despite all the work. 2 weeks in, problems appeared. She couldn't answer my questions but kept asking me about tasks she should have known after doing them for decades. She once asked how to generate the monthly payroll report. When I said she should know this after years of doing it, she made an excuse about the system changing and asked me to show her. After a month, I became better at these tasks than she was after 20 plus years. Besides my own work, I was helping with hers. She made me sit beside her for half days, telling her how to do basic tasks. I suggested I could just do the reports myself, explaining it would be faster than teaching her each step. She refused, saying she needed to do her own work and just needed guidance. She always rejected these offers, thinking she was getting work done when I was basically doing it for her. After a month, she started taking long vacations. She was at work only 30% of the time. When there, she focused on what she called people managing, walking around, chatting with residents, families, and nurses instead of doing real work. I was left alone in a new job, doing her work and fixing her mistakes. When I warned her about deadlines we might miss, she'd just say empty words. Once when I told her budget reports were due Friday and I couldn't finish everything, she just said it was busy and the place would fall apart without me. But she never helped. Then when something went wrong, she'd talk about my mistakes and demand I fix them. One day really pushed me to quit. She returned from a 2-week vacation and called me to her office. She told me I'd made a serious mistake with a nurse's pay by not recording sick days. I explained the nurse got sick during the last 3 days of the month after the payroll deadline, so those days would be on next month's pay. She insisted I should have found a way and that it was my fault. I tried explaining I couldn't predict illnesses and the system wouldn't allow late changes. She dismissed my explanation and told me to fix it. This happened repeatedly. She blamed me for things I had warned her about. She spread this message to nurses who then treated me badly. A nurse confronted me in the break room, asking why I couldn't do my job properly. She said they were caring for people while I just sat at a desk making their lives harder. When I said I was doing my best with what I had, she told me my best wasn't enough, and the boss said I always made excuses. After 4 months, I quit. I had an exit interview with the regional director and explained everything, showing documents of my warnings, emails, and my workload. The director was surprised and thanked me for telling them. A week after I left, my boss had a burnout because she had to do her job without help. Temporary managers discovered what had been happening for 20 years under her leadership. A former co-worker texted that they fired the boss. They found she'd blamed employees for her incompetence for decades and had hidden complaints against her. They were restructuring the department and hiring 3 people to replace me. I felt relieved. After years of making employees miserable and pushing her work onto them, she faced consequences. They're still untangling the mess she left. I found a new HR job with reasonable expectations and a boss who knows what they're doing. I think about the stress sometimes, but I'm glad I left when I did. I'm caught in a car custody battle at 35 years old. Here's how it happened. I've known my buddy for 25 years since middle school. When his son was born 17 years ago, I became the uncle. The kid is exceptional, a year ahead in school, straight A student, and hasn't gotten into the party scene yet. My buddy and his ex split when their son was 8, with a shared custody arrangement and his ex as primary caregiver. Recently, his ex moved in with her new boyfriend, who brought his own kids and has another one coming with her. When my buddy's son got his driver's license, I offered him a job at my company. His dad bought him a used car for school and work. The kid loved that freedom and took it seriously. About a month ago, we found out the ex's boyfriend was using the kid's car and letting his 18-year-old son drive it too. This left my buddy's son stranded multiple times, looking for rides to school and work. My buddy was furious and confronted them. He asked why they were using his son's car without permission. His ex said the car was just sitting there most of the time. The boyfriend said they were one family now and shared everything. My buddy told them the car was in his name, bought for his son, not community property. The boyfriend said since the son lived under their roof, most of the time his things were theirs. My buddy warned that only his son could drive the car and he'd report it stolen if anyone else took it. His ex said he couldn't control what happens in her house. My buddy said he would. After legal threats from both sides, my buddy and his son put a GPS tracker on the car. They told the boyfriend only the kid could drive it and anyone else taking it would be reported. The boyfriend took the car 2 days later. Thanks to the tracker, my buddy called the police, who pulled the boyfriend over and arrested him for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. The boyfriend, angry about his arrest, convinced my buddy's ex that their son should only drive the car if one of them was present or if he was running their errands. They took it to court, and the judge ruled they could set those restrictions during the weeks the kid stayed with his mom. The ex told her son he could only use the car when allowed. When he asked how he'd get to school and work, the boyfriend said to walk or take the bus. The son said his dad bought the car for him. His mom said she could decide when he used the car at her house. The boyfriend then said driving his kids to activities would count as approved use. They wouldn't let him use the car for school and work but wanted him to drive the boyfriend's kids around. The kid called his dad, who called me. We made a plan. My buddy took back the car since it was in his name. I own a rental property near the ex's place with a company car with my business logo in the garage. I gave the kid the garage code and car keys. He picks it up on the way to school, drives it to work, and returns it on the way home. I pay him for driving this mobile advertisement around town. The first morning was great. The boyfriend asked if the son needed a ride to school. The son said no. The boyfriend noticed the car was gone. The son just said he'd see them later. The boyfriend was shocked when he saw the kid in a car with my company logo. That evening, the boyfriend asked him to take his kids to soccer. The son said he didn't have a car at their house. When the boyfriend said he just saw him drive up, the son explained it was his work vehicle only for work and school. But now the boyfriend must rearrange his schedule to drive his own kids around. My buddy's son works more hours, keeps his independence, and isn't an unpaid driver anymore. I was 8 years old when my life changed. One day, I was living in Canada, and the next my mom was checking me out of school without warning. My dad worked at an oil refinery and got promoted to sector manager in Texas. I had to leave my friends and family in Canada. My first plane ride was so exciting that I passed out. When we got to Texas, I was amazed by our new home. In Canada, we had a city apartment, but here we had a big house with 6 bedrooms and a front yard. I was so happy that I almost forgot I had school next week and no friends. Our neighborhood had houses all lined up with neighbors living close to each other. Next door lived a police officer and his 8-year-old son. We became best friends right away, and when school started, he showed me around and helped me. My friend warned me about Ken, the school bully who picked on kids because he wanted to. I was small back then, only about 3 feet 5 inches, while Ken was 4 feet 2 inches. He weighed 50 pounds more than me. I was skinny compared to him. On my first day at the new school, I met one of the best teachers I ever had. She was about 40 years old and very kind. She would stay after school to help students or give them bus money if they needed it. Ken was also in our class. I didn't know who Ken was that first day, but I looked at a tall kid in a black shirt and he snapped at me. He asked what I wanted and called me a horrible name. Those words still stick in my memory. The bullying started in February. I was on the swing set when Ken pushed me off. I fell face first into the sand. He and his friends laughed at me. Most of his buddies only hung around him because they were scared of him. When I got home, I told my dad. He went to the principal, but she was Ken's father's mother-in-law. She wouldn't punish Ken, saying there was no evidence. My dad was angry and talked with my teacher, who said she would watch out for me. But the bullying happened every day. My friend saw it and once helped me push Ken away. That put him on Ken's target list too. I went to my friend's dad while he was working on his red 1997 Ford Mustang. I told him everything, how the principal wouldn't help, and how his son was now being picked on too. My friend's dad told me I should set up a sting. I didn't know what that meant, so he explained. He said he and his partner with child services would watch from a car. If they saw me getting bullied, they would step in and arrest Ken for harassment, assault, and bullying. My friend and I made a plan and told his dad what we would do. The next day, when we saw Ken coming, we ran past him saying something loud enough for him to hear. We told him to meet us at the back alley of Corner Street for a shiny Pokemon card. Pokemon cards were valuable at our school and I knew Ken would do anything to get one. My friend and I met at Corner Street at 5 p.m. and Ken and his buddies showed up at 5:10. A white pickup truck pulled up quietly, but Ken and his friends didn't notice. One of Ken's friends told me to give him the card and no one would get hurt. I said no, this was my card, and told them to leave me alone after bullying me all year. Ken threatened to break my arm if I didn't give him the card. I refused. Ken ran up with his buddies and head-butted me. Right then, my friend's dad, his partner, and a child services worker jumped out of the car and rushed over. They handcuffed Ken and his friends, sat them down at the curb, and waited for their parents. Ken's buddies started crying, saying he made them do it. My friend's dad wasn't really going to arrest them, he wanted to scare them to stop the bullying. Ken started crying too, saying he was sorry and would never bully again. They brought a squad car, put the boys in, and took them to juvenile detention. Later, my friend's dad told me what happened. In juvie, they put the boys in a holding cell, which scared them badly. They all cried and asked for forgiveness. My friend's dad walked them, still handcuffed, around the facility, showing them the kinds of kids detained there and asking if that's where they wanted to end up. They cried more. Finally, their parents came for them. The principal was investigated for allowing bullying and Ken moved away. His former buddies changed completely in middle and high school. They became good students who were friendly with everyone.